Have you ever wondered what it would be like to feel steady and confident in your parenting? Do you ever think about how to truly savor these precious years with your growing people? And perhaps most importantly, do you dream of creating connected relationships that endure beyond childhood? I'm Carrie Conti, and I've spent the last 2 decades guiding, supporting, and inspiring parents to know and trust themselves deeply. And as a result, there are thousands of parents all over the world who feel skillfully equipped, personally fulfilled, and authentically connected with their people in all phases of development. Join me, along with my friend and collaborator, Christian Manieri, as we explore what it means to not parent. Let's get untangling.
So, Carrie, we spent the last episode getting clear on what clarity is and your experience of it and some of my experience of it. Let's talk a little bit about, why does it matter? Like, what are we getting from it? Why should we value it?
Yeah, that's, again, a great question. And I really think it has everything to do with the idea that we're here living this life. Like, if we really pull the scope back, like pull it as far back, we're on the moon looking down at Earth and looking at our own lives and realizing that, if we're lucky, we get 100 years, maybe, which isn't that long in the scheme of things. And we have this almost endless at this point in history, like where we are today as modern humans, there's almost unlimited access to more than we could have ever imagined as a species in, even 50 years ago. Like where we sit and what is possible and what is continually unfolding is profound. And we've got 24 hours in a day, and we need to rest our bodies, and we need to nourish our bodies, and we need to be engaged with the people and the things and the projects and the work that we do to maintain the life that we're living. And like you said at the end of our last episode, you could just be going through. You could just completely be at the whim of life. And yet you don't have to be. That if you would like to be more aware of how you're operating, and if you would like to feel like that you're living a life, maybe it's still busy and hectic, but that you're experiencing the meaningful moments with the people you love, especially that, or you're contributing in a way that feels really meaningful, that's available. Like, we can cut through all of the noise and get down to that essence and be asking ourselves, like, what is it for me to be alive? And I love this phrase that I use a lot. It's being alive in the aliveness. Like, what does that mean? And what does it take to be alive in the aliveness? Like, what does it take to be aware that we're having this human experience and that we do have a lot of agency over what we choose to spend our time doing? So when you ask why would we take any amount of time to stop and go inward and get clear? It's because it's our one precious life. And it would be very easy to just go about it. And that could work beautifully. And when you ask those questions, like, what matters? Like, what do I want to shine the light on and make matter, bring into form, allow to be, allow to get my energy and to get my appreciation and to grow, that takes some inner work, because it can't be dictated from out there, because you're you and nobody else can tell you who you need to be here or how you need to be operating. So that's one. And the second reason, which is relevant to everything I do and everything that I know you do, is because when you're caring for growing people, if you're parenting, if you're in the realm of parenting at this point in history, you have these young humans, and we now know without a sliver of a doubt that they're absorbing, they're watching, and they're taking in how you're being more than anything you're saying. It's really who you are and how you're operating. So when you choose to be a person who goes inward and listens to their own boundaries and listens to their preferences and pays attention to when their gut feels a little off because something isn't quite lining up, you're modeling that for them and you're giving them a skill set. You're speaking a language that is going to be invaluable and maybe potentially one of the only things you can do to prepare them for a future that is completely unknown to all of us. The idea that you would stop and say, a young person, your teen people come at you and say, I want to get this app. And you might think, oh, I don't know anything about that, or I don't know. And you might wobble and feel just out of sorts from it and really feel that sense of like, oh, I better call my friend, or I better talk to my coach, or I better do these things. But if you had this skill set and you were able to say, you know what, I hear that. I'm not sure yet. I have to go inward and I have to find my answer from in here because I'm the guide right now and I have to help you with these things. So give me a little time because I'm going to go do my thing that I do because I've been doing it around you your whole life. In that moment, going to give you a sense of clarity that's very useful to your people. Even if they don't like your answer, you're giving them something that comes from a more aligned place in you, which is always valuable, but it's also modeling a way of operating in the world that will benefit them as they embark on life beyond you and your home. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing that I kind of want to tease out from that is that if we're not careful, if we're not mindful, life is pretty scary. We don't know what's going to happen next. We can try to predict, and certainly our brain expends a tremendous amount of energy doing that.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we don't actually know what's coming. And that's always been true. But it feels like now with climate change and technology and AI and just so many sort of geopolitical shifts that are happening around the world, I feel like I can put up my hand and say, okay, we have it the worst that any generation has ever had. It's really hard. And then you add to that being a parent. And I think that a hallmark of parenting is just worry and fear. And you and I dove into this really beautifully when we started doing Not Parenting together, is that it's, how are they going to turn out? Am I doing this right? Are they hanging out with the right people? Did I put them in the right school? Am I giving them the right foods? Like this constant sense of overvigilance, but all driven by fear.
Right.
And what I've learned in our work together is that clarity is the antihistamine to fear. It's like this thing that I can do and this thing that I can take that says, okay, now I don't. It's not that fear completely goes away. It's that I'm going to look at it head on. And now it's not such a big, scary monster anymore. So that's one of the values for me, is that it helps me handle fear of whatever I've got coming on or going on.
Yeah, I think that's a great, simple way to put it, that it allows for awareness, self and other, that you take a moment and you really stop the train or the plane of worry and what if negative, what if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? Where is this taking us? And that is simply just pausing, like shutting down turning off the computer, putting the phone down and just stopping. That in itself is valuable. And then when you go the extra step of asking all right, well, how do I want to handle this? Or how do I want to respond to that? Or how do I want to, first it's noticing wow, that got me. Or, oh, look at me having a hard time and being in that state of fear. Okay, name it, tend it, hand on heart, I'm with me. The simple acknowledgement of the fact that we're in here and that we're having the experience, that alone is clarity. That alone can illuminate so much. And then when you go the extra step and ask yourself, okay, what do I need to excavate here? One of the big questions I ask people is, both how are you feeling and how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel amidst X, amidst your kids dating, amidst you getting a new job, amidst a parent passing away? How do you want to be in the experience of your life? Because you do get to choose. And it isn't necessarily always the default, because the default is often things that we learned and that we, saw our parents doing. And so another reason why I feel like this is a practice, I need to really be clear that this is tools, skills, and practices that do need to be learned. And having a guide that can help with that is really valuable because most of us didn't get this training. Most of us didn't get marinated or wired in a realm where people were, because these questions weren't being asked as generally as they are. And so to your point, in the sense that we live in this world that's so fast and things are changing so quickly, and there's so much being offered that we have no idea where it's going to take us. The idea that we could even just cultivate the practice of slowing down and even asking ourselves, like, how do I feel about that? And how do I want to feel about it all? Because I think you're right. I think fear could grab us and take us on a wild ride at any moment if we let it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about what I feel when I've done some clarity work, and I do it a lot. It would be of great benefit for me to do it even more and to have like a structure around it, like when I'm in one of your courses. And a couple of words that really float to the surface for me is sturdy, confident.
Yeah.
Words we've already used in our conversations today is intentional, deliberate, but also calm. And I feel like when my mind isn't so busy trying to solve problems, like almost like a hum. What about this? What about this? What am I going to do about this? I haven't figured that out. When I have told my brain, okay, we got this. Look, we just sat there and we journaled for an hour and a half and we got this now. Now my brain's like, oh, okay, well, let's be thoughtful. Let's be creative. Let's be joyful. Let's be present, right? If nothing else,
if nothing else.
Clarity, when I've done the work and I've excavated some gunk and I'm like, okay, got it. This is the direction I want to go in. This is what makes sense to me now. Now I'm like, oh, now I've got room for joy and peace and presence. And it's just like, yeah, what a great, again, like an antihistamine to stress and anxiety. So what are some things that you experience people, or even in yourself, when they don't have clarity? What does it feel like to go through life without clarity?
Well, I think more than anything, it can feel scary. I think there's that low hum sense of, what am I missing? What am I not doing that I'm supposed to be doing? You know, I think that whole I'm not enough that parents especially, but really humans feel can be there. And it's a jangliness. Like it's this sense that like things are not okay. Like I really sense that even in myself, when I haven't taken the time to do some writing and really clarify where I'm at and what I need and all the things that we're talking about, it can feel wobbly. Like I can be unnerved much easier. And when I'm in that state of clarity about something, when I've taken time to sort myself out, there is a different level of calm and a different confidence and a different level of owning what's true for me. And there's a lot of space in there. Like that feels spacious and that feels powerful. And I think when it comes to parenting, of course, you want to give your kids everything and you want to be able to offer them a great experience. But when you're not clear, the energy that's getting conveyed can be really wobbly, and it's harder to really stand in and own what's true for you and what you believe, because you've given it some, thought, is the path forward. So I guess what I'm trying to say is when you're clear on something like an issue about a decision that you're trying to make, especially with regard to your kids, the clarity allows you to be more open to hearing their experience. Whatever their response is, you're not going to be disaffected. You're going to have some experience of that. But because you've taken the time to get clear, you're not going to get as jangled or thrown off by their experience and response to that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so when you're not clear, or when I'm not clear and I'm trying to make my case or interact, I don't think it comes out with the ease or elegance or efficiency that I would like it to. And that just doesn't feel as good as when I've taken the time and I've done some work to set an intention. And no matter what unfolds, I know that, if my intention is I want to be peaceful through this, I may not be peaceful every second of it, but at least I have some beacon out there that's giving me a little bit of an insight into what's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when we are so used to going and getting that sturdiness out there, like getting some data or some feedback or some wisdom from somewhere out there, we miss out on an opportunity to find sort of the ultimate steadiness. And an example that I can think of in my own life is that when I travel, I get very anxious. And I'm running through like, is the flight going to be on time? Or are we going to be able to get to the airport in time? Or is there going to be a big long lineup? Like my mind is sort of predicting, like, here's all the things that are going to go wrong and they're out of your control. And we just don't know. We just don't know. Are we actually going to get to Boston? I don't know.
Right.
And when I can, first of all, just catch that, like do that sort of weather report of just tuning in and being like, oof, I am unsteady. And sometimes I don't even need to. Allie, my 13-year-old, she's like this little barometer for me. She says to me, are you okay? Everything okay over there? No,
yeah.
She'll do it while I'm making dinner. You okay? And then I'm like, oh, yeah, I am. I've just been kind of ruminating on something. You're right. Like, okay, be here kind of thing.
Yeah.
And when I can just do the work of being like, okay, my mind is busy predicting everything that could go wrong on this trip. And I could just get solid and go, you know what? No matter what happens with this flight or this Uber or this line or whatever, I know that I can handle whatever is thrown at me, whatever shift that I need to make, whatever new decision that I need to make. I know that I can handle anything that comes at me. It's so fortifying. To me, it's like, I don't want to go through life anxiously. I don't want to go through life wondering, is this all going to turn out okay? And when I can do the work to be clear, it's not that I suddenly got a crystal ball and I got to know for sure how it's going to turn out. I get to decide how I want to travel there, wherever there is.
Right.
I get to decide, I'm going to choose to be grounded and peaceful regardless of what happens. Now, I feel like I take responsibility back for sort of my way of being, and I take charge of my way of being. And that feels so liberating in a world where we have so little control. That I have control over. My mode of travel, I can handle that.
Yeah. And that's the word I use a lot. I love the word handle. Like, how am I going to handle that? And that is where clarity really comes in. And I'll share an example in my own life. So back in 2015, I was living in Austin, outside of Austin, and a home out in the hill country. And I was up on a hill and a storm blew in. And my friend Bernadette was with me. She happened to be sleeping over that night. And a tornado wind came through and blew my roof off. And it was terrifying, like actively terrifying. We were in the house. The roof blew off. The firemen came. We got out. And then I embarked on an experience that I had to handle some big stuff. I had to deal with redoing a home and, dealing with insurance companies. And I was spinning. And Bernadette, who's my best friend, she knows my work and has been doing it with me for a long, long time. And she made me sit down and she pulled out a marker and she said, how do you want this to go? How do you want this all to unfold? And she wrote out, I was saying, I want it to be easy. I want to be, compensated for the stuff that I lost, like all these things, some of them pretty specific, but some of them also general. And I had that piece of paper for years. I'm probably still do somewhere. And every single thing I wrote down on that piece of paper unfolded that way. And I think about that a lot because while I was going through this traumatic experience, of course, my brain was going through what could go wrong and how poorly it could go. But I knew enough and she knew enough to grab me and go, no, you're going to use your tools. You're going to do the thing that you have taught now thousands of people to do. And it worked. And that example. I mean, that's one of many. I've had houses that have come into my life that I didn't expect. I've moved. I've had, I've built different programs, like everything has started with getting clear, and not just on how to do it, but how I wanted to be through it. So that is why I'm so passionate about this. I mean, as much as I know this is a valuable thing for humans to know and for parents to know so they can guide their kids in knowing it, this is the inside out stuff for me. I don't have children that I've raised, but I've done clarity work, and I can say without a sliver of a doubt, I know the value of this. And I know the value of it by watching, lots and lots of people that have come to work with me that came because they wanted to be more connected with their kids, or they wanted to stop feeling so triggered by things. Or, I can name a million things that people have come to try to figure out. And it always, 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 always boils down to them knowing how to get clear from within. And so that's what I want to be doing almost exclusively now. Like, that's where I'm heading is, okay, I know this stuff works. I say that almost daily. This stuff works. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm really excited about is like bringing a community of people with me to develop these skills and to practice it. And to, as you've said, and I know it myself, it's all wonderful to do on my own, but I do it so much more intentionally and with so much more joy and with so much more clarity when I have others that I'm both supporting and doing it with. And so that's what's so fun for me is like, oh, what would a life of cultivating clarity practices and sharing those with others be like? Like, that's how distilled my life has gotten thanks to clarity work, is that I now know, sure, I have plenty to say about parenting and human development, but if you really want the goods from me, it's clarity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we've covered what is clarity, and in this episode, why would we want it? And what I'm excited to jump into next is like how would we do this on our own? Yeah. How would we do this with you? Yeah. Let's actually create some steps so that we can understand like, all right, I want it. Yes. Sign me up. I want more clarity. Let's talk about how to do that. So I'm excited to jump into that episode.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Not Parenting. For any resources or offerings we spoke about in the episode, remember you can head to carrieconti.com, or you can click on the links in the episode show notes. Thanks for being here.